So there's really only 3 ways to scale your business. And Brian and I have had a ton of success using these techniques already. We're going to share them with you right now.
Hey, welcome back to Blunt Force Business. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And the plane is crashing.
We're scaling.
We're scaling. That's what we're always doing. I want to grow. Well, guess what? You were looking to grow your business? Today, we're going to hit you with the 3 key things, which are the only 3 things you can actually do to scale up your business.
And people, we work a lot in we've been going through like the businesses that we work with, and I feel like a lot of them are either startup or when we work with together, right? They're either startup or kind of like early phase, right? So like a lot of them are just kind of getting down the basics. Whereas like this is like, okay, you kind of got the basics down. How do you grow? How do you scale? How do you go from, and it's really, I feel like scaling is not just growing. I feel like scaling is like multiples. I mean, it's like, how do you go from like 1 to 10 versus 10x? How do you 10x?
How do you 10x? Well,
versus 1 to 2.
Let's tease them with one of the things right now.
Well, one of them, I think is just being around for a while.
Just hanging around.
Just hanging around. It's like Bill Murray said in Groundhog Day, is like maybe the real God was just around for a while. Maybe that's why he knew everything. You know? And it's like, that's not the exact quote, but like sometimes that's it. Like sometimes like you just do a good job, you're around for a while, and before you know it, you've grown. But like it's not really scientific. You know, like
that's more.
What can we give to the people who really want to grow right now?
Right, and I think being around for a while is the organic thing that hopefully naturally, as you're around for a while, you just you're systematic.
There's probably a blunt force fact in there where it's just like kind of like you just have to stick with it.
Yes,
it's like because like that's what a lot of businesses fail because they don't have the mental fortitude,
the stick-to-itiveness,
or the financial fortitude,
right,
to stick with it. They lose the money. They're not willing to eat Campbell's soup for a few weeks and sleep on the factory floor and do all the things that you need to do. Whereas like a lot of the businesses succeed just kind of like they kind of stick through that part.
But if you're sitting down and saying, okay, this year, 2024, we're going to make some significant growth steps, right?
So there's really one of 3 things you could do.
Right. And you know what, to your analogy, here's an analogy. Let's take social media. We can organically post and slowly grow, right? Like you said, just be around for a while. Or we can invest in social media marketing and all these other things, and
we can chase virality.
Chase it, right? So we're chasing growth with these 3 ways.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first way that we chase
strategic. What's the word that we always use? We're being intentional. We're being intentional. Go on.
So the first one is you can enter a new market.
Yep.
You decide to go into something. And I said something at the beginning of this, and Patrick was like, no, that's exactly not what you want to say. Because I was like, dip your toe into the abyss. And you're like, well, no, that's exactly the opposite of what you would do.
I think we want to be intentional.
You want to be intentional.
We don't want to just fly into something.
And you want to know the market,
yeah.
Which is when I mentioned dipping your toe in the abyss, it gave the impression like, ooh, what's down there, right? You don't want to do that shit.
No, you do your work ahead of time and you say, okay, is this going to be something that's going to help us? Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's
get to the second one.
No, let's spend a little time on that. Maybe, and then we'll give them the second one in a minute. But I
think the key is we want to be intentional.
Yes.
Right. So we don't just be like, look, we've been really successful selling, like let's say our niche is, we sell beauty products, or we're an esthetician, right? And it's like, okay, we do Botox. I have an example of this. So we do Botox, and it's like, okay, like we're freaking really killing it. Well, there's these men who do a good job and who are increasingly wanting these types of services, Botox.
Right. Botox.
Right. As Brian, this is how he looks like he's Gen Z still, is because of the Botox. But you can't just like what would then be steps then versus just saying, okay, here's a market. Like instead of just saying, okay, we're just going to offer this. Right. What might be some steps that we're going to go through there before we do it? Like one step in my mind is like, we would say, okay, well, is this going to take away from my current business? If I've got only X number of chairs and we're freaking killing it, like how's me introducing men? Does it make it less welcoming for women? Just to have the men around doing their services. Is it not welcoming enough for the men to walk in with all the flowers and the music and whatever else we got going on in there. So like that's what I mean, like being intentional. It's like, yes, this isn't obvious. And then also really looking into like how big is the market in my area. So they're doing the research as well.
This is a much bigger scale, but car companies do this in different countries. And I was just on vacation in a different country, and I'm always, this is something I just pay attention to when I go to a different country. I look at the vehicles, and I do like this whole, I'm fucking weird, okay? But I do this whole economic evaluation of what is the car economy here? What's it like? And where I was, they're importing, they don't make any cars, so everything's getting imported. So naturally, cars get repaired longer, right? Because to buy a new one is, a little more and whatever. But I've always been enamored by how well car companies understand that we need to rebrand this. Sometimes they don't even use the same name. So the back of the vehicle will have, a prime example might be, this is Buick. In America, you can buy a Regal, right? Buick Regal. If you go to Europe and you're driving around, I shouldn't say all of Europe, right? But if you go to England and you're driving around England, it's not a Buick. It's not called a Buick. And I forget the name, what they use, but the emblem's different. Okay, so they change the emblem, they change the title of not of the car and the type. So the Regal's different, everything's different, and I'm like, holy shit! Like it's the same vehicle for the most part. Steering wheel's on the other side, but everything is reapproached to be, with mindful intention of we got a new clientele here. So to your point, the esthetician, if you're going to enter into this market, now we need to rethink everything, right? Like, do the people you brought up, like the aesthetics of the place you're walking in, right? The name you call the thing, right? It's Botox, Brotox, right? Like that kind of stuff, right? Like, so what do we call it? How do we, everything you've been doing from a marketing standpoint in that case probably has been tailored to a specific audience. And now we're going to switch it. Do we start an entire new channel? There's a lot of it, it all must be intentional.
Right.
So how do you do that? You really need to formulate an entire.
You don't just step into the abyss.
You don't just step into the abyss. You need to do an entire new business plan, focusing on that market segment.
Right.
You got to understand the market segment really well, and too frequently, people and with companies see like a shiny nickel, and they just try to pivot into it, but nothing else about what they're currently doing is set up to embrace that person. And people don't even know they're doing it, or right. Like,
there's a lot of examples of this probably and I'm going to bring up a specific thing from my way back past, but franchising is similar where it's like, okay, we're going to take this thing that works here and we're going to do it. So instead of expanding and saying, okay, we usually work with women, now we're going to work with males. We take the same exact thing that works here and we're going to try it in another place.
Right.
Okay. So you've got to do the work ahead of time and figure out, okay, are they why is it working here and what will make it work there? Part of that is preparation. So back in the day, if you look at youth sports have grown ridiculous. Just if you got kids, the youth sports industry is stupid. And you worked in the facilities, there's these big conglomerations now buying up facilities. I mean, youth sports is ridiculous. Back in the day, it was not like that. It was very, very small. One of the things that happened with my organization I was working with is that we were kicking ass where we were.
Yep.
It's what do we do to reach the next level? Okay, well, let's try and develop a satellite operation. So almost like a franchise. But here's the thing, right? Especially in a low information market like that, and where there's not a lot of national marketing, where it's if you when they opened up a new Sonic in our area, they'd been doing national marketing and maybe that was intentional, right?
And they didn't.
They're probably doing
one.
Right, but I'm just saying. They were national marketing Sonic for a long time, or maybe it was more regional than we thought. Maybe they were really targeting us to develop that brand awareness and that excitement. Because I was like, where's the freaking closest Sonic?
Right.
Like, where's the closest one? And then before you know it, they opened one. But my awareness at that point was pretty high.
Yes.
It's like then you tried to drive by that Sonic. You couldn't get in there.
Yeah.
Because they developed this anticipation. So I go back into my example. We were just doing this little youth soccer program. And then going into this new market. We had to develop some awareness of that because you're in a low information. So what we would do, we'd go out there, do some free clinics, like, operate some free programs, pass out flyers, get to know the people in there. And then you do the expansion. Then you're like, all right, now we're going to set up shop. Right. But that was intentional as well. It's like, you've got to create the awareness because what you're doing here might not work there.
Right.
It might require different messaging. It might require different people. What's the secret sauce? It might require a better understanding of what the actual secret sauce is. And it could be really regional because we've all seen franchises that have failed in our area that have worked somewhere else.
Right.
It's like, and the people are probably just like, what the hell? Like, worked really, really well.
Right.
Where we were doing it. And now it's not working there. Why not? And it could be for a number of different reasons. But in terms of scaling, like, these are the ways you take the next step. And there's a million ways, like, youth sports. Those of you who have kids know that what I talk about worked because it's freaking stupid now. It's like, every youth program has like satellites and there's these national youth programs, but they all started similarly where it was like, here's a little local one and then we're going to grow and we're going to do this and that. And we all know franchises as well. We've had ideas and we've both worked with businesses that have done this successfully. So this is a key way of scaling, right? New market. Either new market, like new segment of the market, like men to women, women to men, or new geography. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to go somewhere else and do it.
And you mentioned that also sometimes businesses, the organic growth that happens just from being around for a while. And you might, our listeners might be like, oh, we've been around for a while. We're going to enter this new market. Well, a key thing to consider in that entry point is, are you going to be able to exhibit the same presence? So when Sonic came in, they dropped a couple stores in the area. We just recently had a local chicken.
Chick-fil-A?
No, I'm not going to name it, but local chicken franchise, probably because I can't remember the exact
Chick-fil-A did something similar. There were no Chick-fil-A's around here.
And there's another chicken franchise just came into the New England area.
The one right around the corner?
Yeah, they dropped a bunch.
You don't like them?
No, I do like them.
Why don't you mention them?
Because I'm going to say the name wrong.
It's Raising Cane's.
Raising Cane's, yeah. So, but they dropped a bunch.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm working with another company right now that's actually looking to get it. It's a startup, but they're looking to play in a new market. And one of the things we were talking about doing with them is, all right, you're right now thinking about dropping one, but your competition has like 10 locations. If you want to really create a name, let's like suck the geographic area in and drop 3.
Okay.
And just so people drive around and they see, oh, what is this? I see one there and I see one there. You're going to look bigger than you really are, but give a little bit.
Well, I mean, like one more example of that is I'm working with a local jeweler. If you look at the jewelry industry, there's a bunch of big players, like think K's, think Hanush is a smaller one, but K's, Zales. I mean, there's a bunch of them, right? And what do they seem to do is they seem to have, like, one of the reasons why it's been hard to expand his local search presence is that around the corner, like these other jewelers, they don't have like one location.
Right.
They have one.
Right.
In every strip mall has one of these K's jewelers, right? So it's like, how do you compete with that? Well, maybe that's the only way.
Right.
Because you can't, especially when I'm working, I do a lot of local search. So it's like jeweler near me, engagement ring near me.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can get to we're doing really well, like in our community, but our smallest, how do we scale that?
Right.
It might be impossible without adding other locations.
Yeah.
Because the search traffic is so geographical.
Yep.
So it's like if I'm looking for a jeweler in Providence, there's so many, never mind local ones, but all the national ones have one too. So it's like, it's hard to expand outside your little area without that scale, right? Without having one here and here and here and here and here and here and here.
So for our listeners out there, one of the things, and there's only 3, is you can choose to enter a new market like this. Break it down to go back to when you first did that business plan and do your research in that market and know what you're stepping into. And then when you step in, consider the fact that do we break away from the brand because this market needs us to be a little different? You have to think about this as its own entity. When you enter into a new, and that's going to pivot us to the second one here, you're going to do it just like the second thing you can do if you're going to scale for growth, which is you're going to do a new product or service, which also requires its own planning process, right? Own business planning process. You do a massive disservice if you do any of those. You do the first one and go into a new market without a business plan, or you do the second one and launch a new product or service without a business plan. And why this happens a lot is because we think about ourselves differently when we're operating. We're like, I got it, right? I got it. I'm having success. I'm profitable, or I'm doing, I've been doing this long enough. I don't need to revisit a ground up business plan. I understand it. Wrong grasshopper, as from the Karate Kid movie, right?
Well, I mean, like there's the successes that I don't think they used Grasshopper in
Grasshopper
Karate
was
Kid.
in
I'm a
Karate
pretty
Kid?
big Karate Kid fan.
What was
I think I could
Grasshopper
probably
from?
quote that one. I don't know.
Okay.
But in any event, the idea that you need to keep growing is, I think some people think it's like selfish and it's like too capitalist and like it causes all sorts of problems down the road. But like the problem with not growing is that you could easily get passed by, taken over. Like if you just kind of sit still, the bigger company who is in the growth mindset is going to just destroy you and catch you off guard, or like usually growth isn't forever. There's very few companies that can kind of sit still. There are some, right? Companies we've grown up with our whole lives that we could drive past. We know where that restaurant is. We know where that place is. They've been around forever, that store, whatever it is. I think that's the exception.
Even
I think the
those.
rule is that you have to have a growth mindset. You have to be willing to scale as a protection mechanism versus just being more successful.
Yes. And launching into new products or services is key in that all products or services eventually will have 2.0 versions,
Right.
that are going to come out. And if you aren't part of that, then you're going to get lost.
Yep.
And there's just no way about it. Like
What types of products or services should we be considering?
in a new product.
New. Yeah, we're going new because we're trying to scale.
So if I was going to give, when I've looked with other companies doing this kind of thing, if I was going to bucket them, the first thing I would look at and say is, okay, let's look at the original thing that you're delivering, and are there need-based, through being systematic about this, are there need-based with your clients that would be a good offshoot of that? And the beauty about growth that makes growth easier than startup is you have data, right? So with any company that's looking to grow, what you already have is the ability to survey, research existing clientele, and obviously see what else is out there. But you have this wonderful thing, which is touch points where you could, and so one of the biggest things that you need to do as part of that planning is you need to do your client research. Because what's different between entering into a new market and entering into a new product or service, in my mind, is a new market is you're finding new clients. A new product or service is you're expanding the buying capacity of your existing clients, right?
So you're improving the lifetime customer value.
There's a big difference here. And some people might say, well, what's the difference between, completely different, right? In one case, we're looking for new clientele. In the other case, we're looking to say like, hey, this is almost like the Amazon add-on button, or, at the end of a purchase, it's like, hey, how about this too, right? So what are things that would fit? So how I recommend companies look at this is, what would your clients be willing to click and add on to their current service package or product purchase that like, hey, listen, this goes really well with that. And if we can sell them on this, we can pretty easily sell them on, why, this other piece. So it's an analysis of that. And I think the best way to start to do that is, I hate the word survey, but it's survey.
What would you use instead?
Well, surveys, because surveys sound so formal, but if we're having interaction, it's the simple act of saying, is there anything that you think you benefit from that we don't offer?
Right.
Those questions are gold, right? And when they're done in that way, people don't feel like they're being surveyed,
right.
But they are.
There's another way. I think that besides using surveys, if you can just think about, this is a piece of advice I was given a long time ago, and I actually talked about this with our group once, is that every product or service you sell potentially could be introducing a problem, not just a solution, right? So think about a car, for example, right? So, and we've just been through this. I've just been through this, right? So I need to get from point A to point B. I need to get to my job, right? I need to get my kids around or whatever it is. So what do I got to do? I got to buy a car, right? So that solves part of my problem. But what problems does owning a car introduce to me? Maintenance, right? Gas.
Social interaction.
Right. Well, yeah, because there's all sorts of problems that having a car introduces. One of them, the biggest one, is maintenance.
No, I know.
So
I went down a different rabbit hole.
What does a good company that sells cars do? They offer a maintenance package. Here's a service package, right? Or extended warranty.
Right.
Right. Like here's what the company, here's the car. When you buy the car, it comes with a warranty. We're selling a used car. Potentially that initial warranty might be done. Usually it is, right? It's only a year. So here's an extended warranty, right? This gives you an additional year, right? And so like if we're selling good cars, maybe there's no maintenance that has to happen during that time. But in the event, right, now we've given them another product. So we've solved we created a problem with our solution, right? And so think about your own I think about my jeweler, right? So you're selling an engagement ring.
Yeah,
right?
keep
But
going.
what challenge is there introduced with an engagement ring? Well, how about keeping it nice and clean? How about keeping the setting and the stone in place? I mean, these are things that change over time. So can you provide like a solution to that problem, right? Which they're going to have that problem. But can you constantly, by introducing new services, have a new product to solve that? Can we look at it from like what potential issues are we creating with our solution?
Right. And so the example you gave, the car one, is pretty straightforward. People can relate to it. I think with some of us, we need to be a little more creative, right, with how we think about it, because it's not going to be that obvious.
Well, yeah, but was it how? I don't know the answer to this, but I would imagine that car dealers didn't always have this. So for years, it probably wasn't that obvious.
Probably.
At some point, they figured out, what, we should do this.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing this? Like a lot of tech is a good example, because like what will happen is, Facebook will have like say Facebook starts, right? And then people start introducing like, oh, I'm going to start selling products on Facebook.
Right.
I've got this amazing social network.
Yep.
I'm connected with all these people.
Yep.
So at Facebook today, start a marketplace. Right. So it's like,
it does take time.
Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't seem obvious all the time. You know what I mean? Like, but you have to think of it like, okay, well, what could we, in that case, they're offering a new product that complements their current product. That's one way of doing it,
Yeah. But at the end of the day,
my esthetician is a good example, because like some of those solutions, like it's like they create other problems. Like if you get too much Botox, if you get Botox too often, now you need this. Now you need that. Like we're going to do these services. Well, now you need to do it more often. Or now you need to do this other product or service. This other complementary thing. So like it's not always solving problems with. Like pharmaceuticals is perfect. So it's like, oh, here's these antidepressants. But like, if you take these antidepressants, if you're on this, now it's like, oh, now you have these other side effects.
Right.
Now you need this other drug, right? And we created this problem, and now we're gonna create a new product to solve the problem that we just created with our solution.
Right.
This is an interesting way of looking at it. Just think about your product, what you're offering, or your service.
Yeah.
And what problem did that create? I sell websites, right? So that's great. I got this freaking great website, but I don't know how to run it. I don't know how to do it. Or it gets hacked or whatever it is. Okay, now, look, well, I've got this maintenance option.
Right.
If you stay on with me, I'll keep it updated.
Well, and the reality is, it's a good service, a good thing, but sold correctly, like you sell the website, and then once it's up, the end user sits there and thinks, how am I gonna man, how do I keep up with this? And, you're there as the, oh my God, I have the solution for you, right? If you're thinking about, and I think that you can be very successful if you can think 3 steps ahead. Magical what you can find for products or services that you can add on. Yeah. So new market, which is new clients, new product or service, leveraging your existing clients and expanding their buying potential. And then the lastly is operational efficiency,
which is your favorite thing.
It is. And I'm going to include in that mergers and acquisitions, because mergers and acquisitions are really designed, if you think about what they are, they're taking 2 companies, we're putting them together, and then we're cutting the fat on the operational piece there. Like,
well, a lot of mergers and acquisitions are part of the first 2. A lot of mergers or acquisitions are expanding into new markets or offering new services.
Yep, but it's
like Facebook and Instagram.
Right. I guess you could say the merger and acquisition might do all of them, but the one thing it always does, right? Because you could say, prime example, like a competitor that's down the street might not be in a new market. They might have the same product or service, and you're just like, hey, listen, I want your clientele. You're going to sell, right? So they definitely can do 1 or 2. They always do 3. They always kind of streamline operations, right? And this company was spending this in the admin side. We're spending this. We put them together. We spend 2/3 of that, right? And we get the same revenue. So I just want to include that in there, because operational efficiency, as our listeners might think about it, is looking at all processes, streamlining them, and now we're more efficient. So naturally we grow because growth is also reducing overhead, right? It's reducing, it's expediting the way that a client can ease of purchase, right? It's all those things that increase revenue, but also can decrease expenses.
Well, plus if you can understand your costs better and you can do more. Right. Yeah. So it's like, let me give you an example. So in digital advertising, there's a basic playbook, right? And I'm working through this with a potential new client. And this is what we have to do when we do digital advertising. It's basically say, okay, like, look, we've got a $3,000 budget for Facebook advertising. Well, why isn't it bigger? Why not spend more than that? Because in the reality is, if it's working, why wouldn't you double it? Why wouldn't you triple it? Because for most companies, they don't know whether it's working or not. They don't have a great idea on it, right?
They're not capturing.
Or they don't have the infrastructure to support growth. So the operational efficiency comes in with like, okay, like, are our people, do we have the right people? Do we have, do we need more people? Do we need to hire people, right? To make sure, like, if we got more jobs, we got to go out and do it. But a big part of it is not having a grasp of our cost per acquisition, our lifetime customer value, our conversions, like our conversion, what that means, what the value of a conversion is,
right?
Because if you know that, if you know, okay, here's how much, if I get these number of clicks on my ad,
yep,
and then if I spend this amount of money and I get this amount of conversions, if I can make that predictable through efficiency, through streamlining my ads, making sure they're optimized, we use the word optimized. Then what you can do is, okay, like, well, now it's predictable. I know that if I spend this amount, I'm going to make this much. Well, if I can get that cost down, and I can spend the same amount and make more, that's amazing. So I've got to work on that efficiency. But like, once I get that, once I'm sure about that, why wouldn't I freaking keep hitting it?
Right.
Spend more money. Why am I not doubling it?
Right.
And then I try and double it. Well, you probably don't double it. You probably scale it slowly. So, okay, I'm going to add money to it. I'm going to add money to this ad.
And see
what happens, right? Do I have the same cost? Do I have the same value for my conversions? Am I making the same amount of money per conversion that I was before? Then I put more money into it. You know what I mean? Like, and at some point that stops. At some point there's a diminishing return where it's like, if I keep putting more money into advertising, then I start losing. Like, the idea is, like, if we want to scale it, we have to figure out we have to make it more efficient.
Right.
We have to get it down to the point where it's like, where our costs are minimal and our output is the maximum per that cost. And by doing that, now we can predictably add resources to it and scale it. But it starts with that efficiency, being more efficient. Can we get the cost down? Can we figure out, okay, what's the creative, what works here, and get it down. So like even from that aspect, it's like getting more efficiency is what allows the scale.
Right. I love it. You know how much I love this.
Yeah, the efficiency is big for you.
It can be take the merger and acquisition out of this equation, right? Because that can be.
I mean, mergers and acquisitions are a huge reason. I look at it from the first two. You look at it. It's funny the way we look at it differently. You look at it as operational efficiency.
Yeah.
I look at almost all mergers, acquisitions as
ways
of getting into new.
Yeah, no, they
because like a lot of it would be like, okay, like we have this, we have this electrical contracting company, and we're trying to get into this new state.
Yep.
And we're having trouble.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of times, it's because, especially just the way people are, they're like, I'm not going to do business with these people. They're over the state line.
Right.
So we can either open a new office or we can just buy that company.
Right.
And now we've got locations in different states, and it's like now we've solved some of that problem. Like we've got a location right there.
Yeah.
We bought that company that was struggling. Or we bought that website, because they get traffic from this clientele.
Yeah.
We don't get that traffic. So we'll just buy that. We'll buy that business.
Keep the name and
Exactly.
roll with it. So yes, I'll ditch. Let's push that to the side for a minute.
Operational
What I like
efficiency.
about the operational efficiency piece is if you take all three of these, it is the most controllable, right? Cost effective, and you can do it at multiple phases while also doing 1 and 2, right? It's almost like if you are not looking almost yearly at operational efficiency transformation within your organization, you're really missing out, because it is one of the cleanest ways to grow with the least amount of risk and the most amount of control, right? Just examining like, all right, can we put a little piece of, never mind like delving fully into trying to launch the time and effort into launch a new product or service, which can be very beneficial, but takes a lot of time and effort. Same thing with going into a new market. Operational efficiencies, if you're out there and you're like, hey, I really want to grow, I don't know where to start, this is where I would start you.
And this is
it's
probably
like, let's just start right here first, because you may find, shit, we just grew 20% revenue just by cleaning shit up, and does that make you happy, right? Does that fill the void that you had there? And like, no, I still want to do more. Okay, well, then we'll look at one of these other ones too. But sometimes it's amazing what you can do just by, it's very easy to say, this is just what we do. You pay this person to do that. You pay this, and you never stop and say, okay, is there a way that now we've organically grown over the last year, and we've organically grown this thing, should we stop and reevaluate all the processes we have, and if there's a better way to do this that allows us to, the only thing that matters is that bottom line number, right? And so that's a great starting point.
I mean, I think operational efficiency is probably your foundation for the other two as well.
It is,
right?
but
it's like if you don't have your shit down here,
yep.
and we try and grow into another market, or we try and introduce new products or services, what we haven't recognized in our inefficiencies could really affect
gonna get magnified.
those, or
Yes.
they also could make them more difficult because our costs balloon.
Right.
And it's like, we don't have what we need here to support that, because the reality is new products and services entering to new markets can be expensive and can take time. And if you don't have enough here to support that, then that can affect your ability to stay in it long enough for those other two things to be successful.
Yeah. And I think, with that concept and always doing this, at the end of the day, it's this piece should be just something that happens all the time, because I think when people think about, I want to grow, that thought is external. It's like, all right, if I want to grow, I need to go out there to do this, where this is a very internal practice that can lead to the exact same, the end result of all three of these is a increase in your net profit. That's what we're doing it for. And this is a very internal piece can be a very internal piece to those three things. So people often think about it or don't think about it. They think, to grow, I got to go get more clientele, or I got to, yeah, you can do that. But there's a lot of shit sitting right in your backyard that.
And the efficiencies create more capacity. Right?
Yeah.
It's like if I can do things better and faster, then I can serve more people within my walls, and then I can expand. I've got more room to expand the walls.
So what should our listeners do? You're there. You're in a growth mindset. You're ready to grow. There's 3 things you can do. You can enter a new market. You can develop a new product or service, or you can look at your operational efficiencies and start to redefine them. At the end of the day, this is best done by doing a pros and cons of all 3 and laying them out on a piece of paper, I think, and saying, all right, if I was to go into market, this is what I would do. This is be the cons of me doing that. This is how much it would cost. This is what the workload. These are the pros. This is what I see as an option. If I'm going to do a new product or service, here's the pros, cons. If I'm going to delve into, revamping my operationals, here's the cost to do that. Pros, cons, and from there you can decide, in analyzing these 3, am I going to delve into one right now? Am I going to delve into more than one? Am I going to do a merger, which maybe will tackle all these or 2 of them at once, right? And what would the benefit of that be? But I think the key thing that my takeaway, and I would love, your takeaway as well, but my takeaway for this is that this process is very formal. You said at the beginning, it's very, the word you use is...
We use intentional. We say intentional all the time.
It's very intentional. It's formal. It's business planning. So if you're not doing it in that way, then you really are throwing caution to the wind. And you're going to spend time or money on something that hasn't been thought through. There's only 3 things you can do. These are the 3. But they have to be intentional.
Yeah, and also I would just, if you wanted my feedback to close it here, is just like, this to me is also survival. Because if you sit still, you're going to be passed by. And you can even think of like a little convenience store, right? Like a little convenience store that survived forever. They don't look exactly the same as most of them as when you started going in there. They have all the new stuff that came out. They got all the new stuff. So if you're walking in there, you want the stuff that's new. You don't want the stuff that's old, right? So it's like, or they've differentiated so you could have like the little corner store that never changed. That's how they differentiate themselves. They keep them. But the idea is I think this idea of constant growth is important for survival, because otherwise you're going to get passed by, eaten up, bought, out-competed. So constant growth, as much as you might be intimidated by it, I think that needs to be your mindset.
Absolutely.
Consistently growing your business, scaling your business, getting to the point where you are protected from the outside world of competitors.
Good stuff. We live in this till the day that we die. Survival of the fittest.
Exactly.
Only the strong survive. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
Till next time.
Thank you.